are undocumented immigrants entitled to public education? For this presentation, we're going to do a prior knowledge KWL chart, keywords, key questions, illegal immigrant statistics, prior knowledge, group activity, brief legal history, why undocumented immigrants should have access to public education, why undocumented immigrants should not have access to public education, challenges for undocumented immigrants, help for undocumented children, completion of KWL chart, final what do you think activity. Before we begin, we're going to be doing a KWL chart to help everyone activate their prior knowledge. On the next slide, we have a KWL chart for everyone to fill in. For those unfamiliar with a KWL chart, this chart is a way to record information we know on a topic, information we want to learn, and after the presentation, what we learned. Right now, I want everyone to fill in the first column. What do you know? To help answer this, think about where you've learned this information, whether this information is positive or negative. Do you have first-hand experiences, both as a teacher and student? What are your biases and assumptions? How much information do you know about each side? Do you know more about one side? Once you finish with the first column, you can move on to the next column. What do you want to learn? For example, would you like the information you think you know confirmed? Do you want to learn more about one side? Once you finish the second column, you can move on with the presentation. We'll get back to the last column at the end. Here is our KWL chart for you to fill in. Keywords: undocumented, not having the appropriate legal documents, license, or visa to travel. Illegal immigrant, migration of people into a country without the legal right to live in that country. Immigrants, person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. Deportation, the removal from a country of someone whose presence is unlawful. Reunification, the process of returning children within care of others to their parents. Public education, primary or secondary schools that educate all children without charge and are funded partly or wholly by taxation. Key questions. Do illegal immigrants put a tremendous strain on social services like education? Should districts have the right to deny students who do not have the proper documentation to completely fill out school registration forms indicating illegal status? Without education, what will be the outcome of illegal immigrants in the United States? This chart shows a breakdown for the number of undocumented immigrants per state in the year 2016. In 2016, there were 10,700,000 undocumented people in the entire United States. The states with the largest number of undocumented immigrants are California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey. Here, we see the breakdown for the number of undocumented children and young adults in the United States. The data shows that children under the age of 16 make up 5% of the total number of undocumented immigrants, or about 606,000 people. Then the number of 16 to 24-year-olds makes up 14% of the total undocumented population, or 1,577,000 people. This chart shows the number of undocumented children enrolled in school and not enrolled in school. For children aged 13 to 17, majority are enrolled in school. The largest group not enrolled in any school is 18 to 24-year-olds, where 40% are enrolled and 60% are not enrolled. Here, we see the number of undocumented immigrants in the United States for the years 1990 to 2017. From 1990 to 2007, the number of undocumented individuals was going up exponentially. However, after 2007, the number has been steadily falling. California is one of the states with the largest number of undocumented people. Here we see a breakdown of Californians' undocumented statistics. 1 in 13 Californians is undocumented. More than 1 in 5 undocumented people in the U.S. reside in California. 750,000 K through 12 students in California have undocumented parents. 240,000 young people in California have applied for DACA. A brief legal history. We're going to start by talking about Plyer versus Doe. In 1975, the state of Texas created a law that made it so that schools could not receive funding for children who did not have the proper paperwork. And as a result, this meant these children would not be able to go to the public schools. In response to this law, a class action lawsuit was filed. The basis for the lawsuit revolved around the argument that by denying these children education, the state of Texas was going against the Equal Protection Clause of the Amendment 14, which says no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. In the end, the Supreme Court agreed that the children should be educated. We have a short video here which helps summarize the case. Next, we're going to be looking at Lau versus Nichols. Another case worth mentioning is Lau versus Nichols, which began at San Francisco Unified School District, which had a large population of Chinese students who were not fluent in English. The school district provided some students classes to help them learn better, but the majority of the students were not offered any additional help and were expected to excel in classes solely taught in English. Those who were not receiving supplemental courses filed a lawsuit, and in the end, the Supreme Court agreed and said all schools had to offer additional help to English language learners to help them master the English language. Our country is divided in whether undocumented immigrants should have access to public education. Those in favor argue that all students, no matter their origin or status, deserve an education. Children who come to the United States illegally, by no fault of their own, need an education to become functioning members of society. We deny them the ability to live within the structure of our civic institutions and foreclose any realistic possibility that they will contribute to even the smallest way to the progress of our nation. There are studies that show having more immigrant peers appears to increase U.S. born students' chances of high school completion. There is no evidence that proves negative effects of strategies used for English language learners on their peers, or fear that it takes away from native English learners. There is actually evidence that these programs have positive effects on native English speakers. Long-term effects of these children not gaining a public education outweigh the costs in providing them a public education. Overall, it's argued that it's in our country's best interest to educate these individuals because it helps integrate them into the U.S. society, learn English, and be educated individuals more likely to be able to read, write, and live independently. On the opposite side of the argument, we have people who do not believe undocumented immigrants should have access to public education. Many people who have this view feel that allowing them to attend public education creates a larger problem. Forcing public school districts to educate illegal immigrants is a perfect way to perpetuate the problem. It's also a major incentive for illegal immigrants to remain in this country. It's no wonder we have a huge problem with illegal immigration. No one wants to make the hard calls for fear of being called insensitive. People see these students as an expense on taxpayers that students and families are not contributing to. The open door policy promoted by the U.S. Department of Education places a greater burden on taxpayers at the expense of their own children. The taxed money from the families is expected to go to their own children's education, not others who are not contributing to paying taxes. This viewpoint is blaming laws to ensure the public education for all students for the rise of illegal immigrants and immigrants staying for longer periods of time in the country illegally. Challenges for undocumented children. Many states that have a large population of immigrants are also having increased police and law enforcement present. This includes many worksite immigration raids. On average, the number of children affected from these raids in their homes or operations by local police was about half the number of adults arrested. Occasionally, schools will be notified of raids that will occur so they can ensure students who will be affected have a safe place to go after school. Many parents are scared to enroll students because they lack proper documentation and cannot fill out all the forms or fear this will cause future problems for their family. Immigrant parents are often barred from obtaining a driver's license, and due to lack of credit history, are often subletting or renting a form from a landlord without a formal lease agreement. This does not give them the specific documentation they need to prove residency and fill out school registration forms. Help for undocumented children. Deferred action for childhood arrivals. President Obama enacted the DACA policy that allowed undocumented immigrants who entered the U.S. at a young age a 2-year renewable deferment from deportation and eligible to work and pursue higher education. Although this was changed under the Trump administration, they no longer allow more applicants, but those who are already protected under the act could continue to renew. The Biden administration opened it to new applicants again in January 2021. Special immigrant juvenile status. This may only be applied to children under the age of 21. They are placed in the custody of an individual or government entity and with whom unification is not viable due to abuse, abandonment, or neglect by one or both parents. They must also rule that it is in their best interest not to return to their country of origin. This act allows children to be protected from deportation and protected from abuse or neglect. Now that we've completed the presentation, I want you to revisit our KWL chart. Read through what you wrote for the first two columns and then begin working on the final column. What did you learn? To help you with this, think about, did anything surprise you? Did you learn any new information? Have you changed your stance on the debate? Were you able to identify any biases or assumptions? Were your biases and assumptions questioned? Do you have any remaining questions and concerns? Here, you can fill in the last column of the KWL chart. To conclude this presentation, I want you to choose one of our key questions to answer. As a reminder, our key questions are: do illegal immigrants put a tremendous strain on social services like education? Should districts have the right to deny students who do not have the proper documentation to completely fill out school registration forms indicating a legal status? Without education, what will be the outcome of illegal immigrants in the United States? Remember to answer using the facts and data presented to you. Each response needs at least 3 areas of evidence supporting their argument.